Land title is one of the most crucial information you need to know when buying a property or piece of real estate. Land titles are not only important when buying a land, it's even more important when buying a building, because the land title with accompanying approval documents validates the building itself and adds more value to the building. My name is Emmanuel, and in today's video, I'll be comprehensively explaining to you land titles in Nigeria. I've helped clients in the past to purchase properties. I hope to share with you value in this video. For more valuable information on real estate, consider subscribing to this channel. In March 28, 1978, the Land Use Act was enacted. Essentially, the Land Use Act grants to the state governor all lands in the territory of a state, except those land of the federal government within a state. So what this means is that every land in a state is under the control of the government or belongs to the government. The governor is to use the land for the interest of the people. And this is where land titles come into place. Because essentially, land title transfers those rights of the state government land to an individual. The Land Use Act also recognizes the indigenous owners of a piece of land. A land could either be free or under government acquisition. I'll explain further on this shortly. The first land title, the C of O, which is Certificate of Occupancy. This is the most sought after land title in Nigeria. The C of O, one of the most comprehensive land titles. The C of O, which is Certificate of Occupancy, transfers the rights of a land to an individual or corporate body or a community. It is worthy to note that C of O is only issued once. This means that in no time can a land have two C of O's, because the C of O conveys the rights of a land to an individual, and it can only be issued once to the first person that registered the land or that bought the land of the government. This C of O leases the land to an individual for a period or term of 99 years. This means that the individual have the right to possess the land and also transfer the right of ownership to another party. This is one of the most sought after land titles in Nigeria because of how comprehensive and how it covers an individual. With a C of O under the Land Use Act, when the governor transfers that right to you, that right cannot be abused without compensation. Even if the government want to take back that land, there need to be adequate compensation. The second land title, which is Governor's Consent. Governor's Consent is not necessarily a title, but let me explain further on this. As I mentioned, the C of O can only be issued once, and in no certain time can you have two C of O's for a piece of land. If you remember well, in C of O, which is Certificate of Occupancy, the person who the Certificate of Occupancy is issued have the right to transfer that land to another individual. But according to the Land Use Act, this transfer cannot be done without explicit authorization of the state governor. So this is where governor's consent comes in. After the first person that registered it with the government and the government issues a C of O, if that person with the C of O is to transfer the land to another individual, after the transfer process is being completed, a governor's consent needs to be obtained. That way, the governor is explicitly aware of the transfer of that right to a new party. Understanding this process means that governor's consent with accompanying documents transfers the rights and claims of the land to a new individual. And with the governor's consent being there, it means the transfer process has been completed and registered. The government is aware of this transfer. Third land title, which I'm going to discuss about, is a gazette. Remember earlier, I said that a land could either be free or under government acquisition. A free land, as it's explained, means a land that is free and not under any commitment by the government. But an acquired land means a land that is under government jurisdiction. A land under government acquisition could be either committed or under global acquisition. What a committed land means is that this land has been set aside for government purposes or for a specific government project, maybe to build a train station or bus park or a police station. So if you go and buy a committed land, you cannot recover your money back and you cannot lay claims to the right of that land because the government have jurisdiction of that land and they've committed the land for a project either now or in future. On the other hand, a land that is under global acquisition, this means that even though the land is under government or the land is in an urban area, if the land is under global acquisition, it means there's no specific project the government has marked out for that piece of land. This means this land can be released to an individual, company, or corporate organization through a process called excision. And when the excision is in process, this is excision in process. After the excision process is complete, the exercised land is recorded in a government document known as Gazette. And this is why the Gazette is a recognized title. This means the land has gone through a process known as excision. Excision means basically setting out some part of land out from the whole and giving it or returning it back to an individual or community. When the excised land is published in a government document as evidence of the completion of the process, the land is going to have a title called Gazette, approved excision with Gazette. Excision in process is not a title, even though at the time of purchase, a land could have excision in process tagged to it. This comes with a certain degree of risk. Depending on the reputation of the company, this process could go ahead and you could eventually get an approved excision and a title known as Gazette. But Gazette is the ultimate title in this process. The fourth land title, which I'm going to talk about, is Registered Supreme Court Judgment. In rare cases, a person having a land title could be in some dispute with another person laying claim to the land. And if this goes to the courts, possibly the customary courts and appeal courts, and progresses further to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has got the final say on the land. In rare cases, a C of O is revoked. The Supreme Court judgment becomes the new title, and the person with the verdict from the Supreme Court judgment can lay claim to the land and can also transfer that claim when selling the land. So this is important, even though the Supreme Court judgment could be rare. But as you know, in Nigeria, the tussle for land is nothing new. It could be communities fighting over land or an individual fighting over the land. It could be that the land was fraudulently sold, even with the right document. You have to know that if someone does not have the capacity to enter into a contract, that contract is sort of null and void. What I mean is that, let's say you are under 18 and you sign a document, and in the law of the land, a person under 18 can't be legally binding. This means that even though the person under 18 signs the document is null and void. The fifth land title, which I'm going to talk about, is grant of probate or letter of administration, where a person rightfully owns a land together with accompanying documents. If the person passes away and leaves a will, maybe to the relative or to a person, it is important that the person who the land is willed to get a grant of probate. And this grant of probate shows that the person legally owning the land has willed this out to a new person, and the grant of probate affirms the transfer of this land. Just like grant of probate, letter of administration shows that a land has been transferred to a relative of a person without a will, and this could have been decided in courts to know the next line of succession or the next of kin to the person that previously owned the land. And when this letter of administration is issued or held, this affirms the transfer of that land. The sixth land title, which I'm going to talk about, is R of O, or right of occupancy. This is almost similar to certificate of occupancy, but in this case, a right of occupancy is more like a leasehold. Basically, you are just transferred the right to occupy that land, and this right could be revoked in future, and it is not as all-encompassing as certificate of O. It is important that you know these things because these land titles affect the value of a property. I could say the right of occupancy is just like C of O, but you are being rented the land in a way, just like in the British system where you have freehold and leasehold. Leasehold means that even if you are buying a property, you don't own the land. More like the land has been rented to you for a specified period of time, maybe 99 years or 999 years. So the right of occupancy is basically a temporary allotment of the land to a person, and you do not have that right to transfer the possession of the land, unlike the C of O. And this comes with a limitation. In future, something comes up, you are not compensated because initially anyways, you weren't granted the full ownership of the land. You were granted temporary resident on the land. Even though your right on the land is just like the C of O, but you do not have the right to transfer ownership of that land. The seventh land title, which I'm going to talk about, is not really a land title, but I've come across this in one or two circumstances relating to real estate, and this is freehold. Just as I mentioned, freehold and also leasehold is much more common in the British system. Basically, a freehold means that even the government has no right on that land, and you are free to do whatsoever you want with the land. You can transfer it to anybody without consent of the government, and you have total and ultimate right over the land. But with the interpretation of the Land Use Act of 1978, and you cannot lay claim to freehold after 1978. So even if one way or the other you have the right over a land, you need to register it with the government. Even maybe let's say you are the indigenous owner, as they call them, the omoniles, or the rightful owner of the lands by customary or non-customary act or convention. You need to register with the government because, as it says in the Land Use Act, all land in the state belongs to the government. So this brings me to the completion of land titles in Nigeria. I know this video is about land titles, but I'll also touch on some documents you need to ask about, some very important documents that comes with the land title. And this is purchase receipt, which is basically evidencing the payment of an amount of money for land transaction. You need to have a survey plan given to you, a registered survey plan. This shows that the land is not under government acquisition, and is also specifying the exact size of land being conveyed to you, and also the available or appropriate title of the land, and also a contract of sales. This is more like terms and conditions stating out some specific things in the land. Don't forget that a deed of assignment, regardless of the land title, is very important, and is a must that you have a deed of assignment. That deed of assignment is normally drafted by a real estate lawyer, and he is basically transferring and evidencing the transfer of the rights of a land and the claims of a land to you, the buyer. Thank you very much for watching this video up till the end. If you did enjoy this video and gained value in this video, don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel for more valuable content on real estate, construction in Nigeria, and running businesses in Nigeria. I'm a civil engineer, and I'm very passionate about the real estate industry. I've committed my time, my effort, and my resources in knowing more about this industry. And I've helped clients in the past to purchase properties here in Nigeria, specifically in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. If you're after land or looking at purchasing land in a city like Port Harcourt, get in touch with me if you have any questions or inquiries, or if you're looking for some advice or the best places to buy land in Port Harcourt. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.